Now we will come to the important aspect of state and administration. The 19th century was much more important when it came to the viability of the state forms. There were three basic forms then: 1, democracy; 2, feudal state; 3, colonial state. The 20th century has greatly escalated the mortality of state forms along with a dramatic expansion of the functions of the state. Whenever we take about 19th century and 20th century, there is a sea of change of understanding of the state. By the time of the 20th century, there is a lot of change after the Second World War. More than 140 countries got an independence after the Second World War. A different type of democratic systems have existed, established, and successfully continuing. So now the 20th century is a liberalized democratic systems are working in the major part of the world. Still, some part of the world are dominated by the totalitarians, dictatorships are there, but still major part of the world are in the democratic governments and democratic states. In recent years, that is after 1990, particularly after 2000, there were the arguments in favor of the limited role of the state, also known by other terms such as retreating the state, downsizing the state, withdrawal of the state, and state has become strident. The new policies of the last decade of the governments, which aimed at limiting the size and activity of the state, dismantle the public sector through disinvestments and privatization, creating favorable atmosphere for private enterprise and market forces, and cutting down the expenditure on welfare. The world globalization holds much weight in the context of the present world. Presently, if you see, after 2000, this is what we call is a new public management revolution in the world. In this, the state, now we are saying, previously for everything we are depending on the state. The state is there to protect you, state is facilitating you, state is take care of your welfare, state provides employment, state creates institutions which helps you, state runs the business in the name of public sector and give the cheaper items to you. These were the stories up to 1990, facts up to 1990. Now, after 1990, we are talking retreating government, downsizing government, let's reduce the bureaucracy. We are withdrawing from the various welfare functions. This has become a domination that is called we are downsizing, withdrawing government. The reason behind, in the name of the globalization, multinational corporations are entering and dominance of the market, that is private sector is taking care of each and everything. In the post-Cold War era, the situation of the world has changed considerably. The world today commonly referred as a global village owing to its apparent smallest brought about by improved means of communication. In this global village, the most crucial phenomenon is globalization, which means a situation which contains aspects placed beyond national or localized interest in the international platform. Through globalization, caters to a variety of fields. Its most significant repercussion has occurred in the field of economics. You might have heard the word called global village. Why we are calling the word a global village? Because number one, invention of internet, the world has come a small. You can contact a person in New York within a half second sending an email. He replies you back within a half minute stating that he is doing this, he is whatever you want. Like this, because of information and communication technologies, all over the world it has become a global village. In this global village, one of the important aspects is communication, another important aspect is because of economics, global economics and world market. For example, made in China items are available here, made in India items are available in America. So you can identify that some of the things in India, made in China, made in Indonesia. So like that world has become a simple global market. This is because there has been a distinct division between economically developed and economically underdeveloped countries in the world in the post-colonial era. In order to overcome this economic disparity, cumulative efforts of the entire world, especially that of the developed countries, required. The trend towards the evolution of a global society is generally thought of economic terms and in terms of revolution in communication and technologies. Now, we will enter into another part of our lesson, that is role of state in developing countries. The modern state undertakings bewildering variety of activities such as lawmaking, defense of territory, taxation, justice, public order, macroeconomic management and enforcement of the laws of the land. There is a whole slew of welfare oriented activities including medical care, income, supplements for the indigent, social security, etc., which the government commonly provide. The developmental state carries on even more activities encompassing the administration of various developmental missions like adult literacy, integrated rural development, creation of infrastructure to provide inputs to farmers for improving meager yields, the creation of industrial estates, promotion of non-traditional exports, etc. The 20th century has seen a huge escalation of the expectations of the people from the state and thus stretched thin the capacity of the state to respond. All over the world, the state has grown. Its activities have become more diverse, and since the primary instrument of the state has been bureaucracy, the potential for various forms of bureaupathology has increased. The successes raise hope that the modern state is governable and that the state bureaucracy can be made much more efficient, responsive to the needs of the public and development vision of the country. Now, the state in developing countries is having about traditional functions. With the possible exception of social security, the fastest growing area in public administration is in the traditional activities that government have always carried out, principally because the nature of the functions has been transformed. Health, social security and other things we can keep it aside, but there is a fast growing area in public administration is that traditional activities of the government. What are these traditional activities? The first important area is relations with other countries. A century ago, external relations was relatively simple affair, conducted directly between visiting statesmen or delegated to resident ambassadors who exercised personal diplomacy in the few states that counted in the international arena. Today, the study of external relations is an academic in its own right, concerned not only with the complicated relations among an ever growing number of sovereign states, but also with the multiplication of international bodies dealing with the subjects ranging from international law to civil aviation tariffs, from peacekeeping operations to atomic energy research. Before industrialization, the maintenance of law and order was largely a local affair, except for disorders that threatened to get out the hand when the militia would be brought in. But since industrialization, civil police forces have grown with a separate discipline of criminology and law enforcement to cater to their needs. Law courts have been elaborated and differentiated, and a separate system of administrative law has been established. The first, law and order. A citizen, his opinions depends upon how the law and order maintains in a state. Then he says the state is good or bad. And we say, even we quote all the time, Mahatma Gandhi says, even in a midnight, a woman is walking on the roads. His vision is that it has to be happen like that. So, the first important aspects for the citizen is maintenance of the law and order. Second is security. Less than 2 centuries ago, wars were largely fought between small mercenary armies which expect for heavy armor, largely equipped themselves and lived off the land, taking loot as their payment and leaving few battle injured. Since then, mass conscripted armies have replaced mercenaries, weapons of fearsome destruction have been produced, and total war is conducted around the clock on land, sea and air in a variety of new ways, including gases, chemicals and germs. So, this is one of the important area for the state is to maintain its security, protecting its land, protecting its geographical areas. If a state is unable to protect its land and geographical area, then people are not going to believe the state. They will become against of the state. So, the one of the important thing is 2 centuries ago was different, now it is different. After Second World War, some of the governments are using a lot of machineries, weapons, gases, chemicals, and they are creating some type of a germs in a particular things. So, these things are started in all over the world. These transformations in warfare necessitate a permanent war organization, professional military training, supplies and maintenance, weapons research, civil defense and rehabilitation. Another important function is public works. The spectacular public feast of the past, the 7 wonders of the world, large scale irrigation, flood control and drainage schemes, ports and harbors, religious shrines have been matched in every generation. The past century has witnessed large scale subway systems under major cities, vast river valley development schemes, networks of superhighways and railroads, public broadcasting services, communication satellites, suspension bridges, airports, undersea roads, exploration and reforestation. These type of spectacular public projects should not eclipse the steady advance along a wide sector of traditional public concerns that fill the agenda of local authorities without raising much public attention. As a student, we can think about state and its traditional functions in developing world, particularly related about these 4 areas. Dear students, so far we have observed how the evolution of state has taken place in the human civilization and the role of state in developing nations. To broadly summarize, state is an important innovative institution by the human beings. What is state? Simply, a state represents 4 important things. 1, people, another is place, government and sovereign government, sovereignty. These are the 4 important elements of the state. This was we discussed in an elaborative form, in a different form actually, but to summarize, state means these are the 4 important things. 1. 2, states having a different type of a factors. For example, a different type of a nature of the state exists in the world. For example, totalitarian, dictatorship, a democratic, theocratic, a different type of states emerge in the world, is already existing in the world. Another important area is developing states public administration is basically related about number 1, how they are maintaining diplomatic international relations with other countries. Number 2, how the law and order is maintained in the country. Number 3, how they are protecting their country. Number 4, how the important welfare activities has going to be taken place in the people. These are the things we discussed elaborately in this presentation. Now, as a student, you can write answers for the 2 important questions. Number 1, identify the important elements of the state and explain these elements from the Indian background. 2, what is the role of public administration in developing countries? What type of activities are required by the administration for the people in the developing countries? You try to answer these 2 questions based on our presentation. For further study, you can go through